Episode 30 of The Clinical Dose. We're back once again. Well, I'm back once again. We've got a special guest in this episode for you guys. This is Will, Warren-Davey from Primabolics. Will is joining us in this episode. He's spent the majority of the day here at MassiveJoes headquarters. So thought we'd throw you in an episode of Clinical Dose, Will.
Thanks for having me, mate.
We've got 5 awesome questions. Let's get straight into them. Question number 1 from mikeneda from Instagram Q&A. Having a high Stim pre-workout every time you train. I'm training 5 to 6 days per week. Pros and cons. Will, you're the highest. Well, you're the Stim specialist, should I say? Or that you're like the anti-Stim specialist.
I am actually. I've carved out a unique space in that.
You are.
So I'll go the cons. You go the pros, because I know that I think that'll be a fun bit of an angle to it.
Well, I'm not even sure that using a high Stim pre-workout every time you train 5 to 6 days a week that there are any pros.
Not particularly, is there? Because if we're looking at even let's go short term. Yeah. So high Stim, will be vasoconstrictive for once. Pumps are so important. We've seen that time and time again, the amount of data. Blood is the vessel for putting nutrients into the muscle, hydrating the muscle, flushing out byproducts as well, lactates, other things. So if you jamming in a high Stim pre, jacking up that cortisol, it's a diuretic, it's a vasoconstrictor. We're not hydrating that muscle, we're not getting blood flow to it, so we're not getting nutrients to it. So just from an acute sense, that's a con. In my books, I put that down as as one in the con column. Second part is as well, if you're a PM trainer, that is disastrous. We spoke about this at length. Jump on the latest episode of the podcast we just did if you want to hear more detail about that. But interference with sleep quality, massive con. Sleep is your main driver of anabolic activity. It's everything. It's where you build your muscle, burn your fat. It's where your hormones optimize, where you produce your testosterone, your growth hormone, everything. So I would say again, another con, disrupting sleep quality. Massive one as well, particularly in the afternoon trainers.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Big one. Look, I think, Mike, it's really hard to pull a pro for using a high Stim like 5 to 6 times a week. I think, if you're using a high Stim pre-workout, maybe for your bigger, longer workouts, or maybe once or twice a week when perhaps you haven't slept that well, your energy level's a little bit low and you just need a little punch to kind of get you through the workout, then there's probably pros, right? Because your energy's going to go up, you're going to train harder for longer, you might be able to lift more weight, you might be able to stimulate more muscle growth or burn more fat depending on your goal. But I think that kind of maxes out at like a couple of times a week. Oh,
it does. Really. And I think the best data for showing caffeine's best performance was for actual ergogenic aids, so things that will actually show you to boost athletic performance, was 2 to 4 milligrams per kilo of body weight was the one. So 100 kilo guy, 200 milligrams as the low, to 400 milligrams tops, which is sort of the sweet spot for a lot of pre-workouts. But if you're looking at going up around the top end of that range, that's getting very heavy dose. And I think so. And a lot of your good benefits come in the lower end as well. So 2 to 3 milligrams per kilo of body weight, 80 kilo guy, 160 milligrams, 240 milligrams. A lot of pre-workouts are double that now. Yeah. So, what you consider high Stim as well is worth looking at too.
Next question from Hemu090 from Instagram. Is norvaline harmful for the body over time?
This was interesting. There was a study last year about this, and I think norvaline was it's something that helps to stop the breakdown of nitric oxide. So we use a lot of our pump formulas that we use are designed to boost that blood flow for all the stuff we just spoke about, getting that nutrient in the muscle and helping with growth and hydration. So I guess L-norvaline,
it's like a pump prolonger.
It is. Really. It drags it out nicely.
Norvaline and agmatine, they work through slightly different pathways, but they effectively have the same end result, which is to prolong muscle pumps.
They do. They keep it around for longer, stop that nitric oxide being broken down. So really, really great in a training sense. Now, where that came out was they thought there was some neurotoxicity. So I guess as an amino acid, it crosses the blood-brain barrier, and they thought it had issues with being neurotoxic. But the study they had, like a lot of studies, was they used mega doses of it. So if you scaled it back to what that would be, in a human sense, it was something like 15 to 20 times the dose you'll ever see in a pre-workout supplement. So if you're looking at your supplement panels, guys, 200 to 300 milligrams of L-norvaline is what you'll normally see on there to do that job. And the studies were literally 10 to 20 times higher than that. And they've also a lot of studies shown that other amino acids that cross the blood-brain barrier will compete and a lot of time block out the absorption of norvaline in the brain. So there's really been refuted there's really any issues to worry about with norvaline.
Absolutely. Next question from Gavin Larry Fitness 22, also from Instagram. What type of label would you go for on a TMJ branded Supp?
Oh, what would you go for?
Well, let me first start by saying there will never be a TMJ branded Supp because TMJ is an apparel brand.
Firstly, we're closed.
Not a supplement brand. This always gets mixed up. TMJ apparel is the apparel. MassiveJoes, also known as MJ, is the supplement side of it.
Is. So if you're into a MassiveJoes supplement label, what would you like to see?
Mate, you are the label king. You've actually put the MassiveJoes logo on a supplement label for us.
I have grind with the red frog flavour. We literally put that MassiveJoes logo right on the front.
Logo. We might even pop that up on screen right now so you guys can see what we're talking about if you're not aware.
She's been a great project.
I mean, you know what? I'm gonna throw this over to you. What type of label should I go for on a theoretical MassiveJoes branded Supp?
One, I think in a practical sense, because I get to deal with hearing consumers firsthand every day of the week in supplement stores. One that's informative. Now, and I mean simple but effective instructions on how to use it and what to expect from it. Because it sounds, because we've been around supplements for so many years, but a lot of people watching these videos are wanting to learn information about, some of the basics. Some of them are just coming to supplements for the first time. So if they're looking for a label on some of these things, making sure that it's got very clear and informative, because my earlier labels didn't have that. And so many times, most of the DMs and emails I'd get were just simply asking, how do I use your product? That was a big thing. So that's just the basics, simple, and cover that one there. Next part as well is just, I guess, I always try and make it actually make sense for what your brand represents. Okay, so not having, a hardcore label on a brand that's all putting out natural products and so on. It just makes sense with your branding is a big part of the picture too.
The branding piece is so big, man, and so many supplement companies mess it up. There's just not many well-branded Supp companies around at the moment. But I tend to agree with you. In terms of the information on the label, what is it? What does it do? When do I take it? How long does it take to work? And how much does it cost? But you probably wouldn't put that on the label. But that would be, that's how we run the product listings on MassiveJoes.com.
Yep.
It's through there as well.
Good basic breakdown sort of style on your label.
Next question, JC Dwyer from Instagram. What do you look for in an athlete? So I'm assuming that JC is talking about sponsored athletes here.
Yep.
We were having a discussion about this earlier today.
We were, weren't we? And we were looking at, I think, I guess when you approach a business and you're offering your service being, you're going to promote a given brand or supplement for someone or a product, you're basically going to them saying, will you in some form take me on or employ me to an extent, or put me on, will you take me on to represent your brand and I'll offer you a service? So when you're thinking in this space, what do you look for in an athlete? Come into it from the frame of not what that business can do for you, but what are you bringing for them? Come in going, what genuine value do I offer this business owner? What do I do for this person's brand? Is it more exposure? Is that your strength? What strengths do you bring in? And look at it from the angle of what do you bring to them? So what we're looking for in athletes, I guess, one I think a very big one is having a relevant demographic that we talk to, making sure that they're talking to. Sending out that valuable information to whoever their audience is, to make sure that that it's in line with our brand values too. So we want to have a relevant demographic and make sure that they're communicating things that'll help with our brand to them as well. Yeah, that's a big part of it.
Yeah, I mean, we're very specific with what we look for in sponsored athletes for MassiveJoes and TMJ Apparel. The first thing is you have to be an IFBB Pro. And the reason for that is over the years, we've dealt with so many different athletes and influencers and ambassadors and so on and so forth. And I was able to identify the correlation that by the time you've put in the time, the effort, the work, develop the grit to become an IFBB Pro, that translates into being able to do things as an athlete that we need you to do for it to make business sense, such as doing your posts, such as being able to talk to people, such as communicating effectively, such as doing things when you don't feel like doing them, all of those things that are really crucial to getting you to that level of athletic performance translate into other areas of your life.
Oh, definitely do. There's always a crossover. When you have that level of extreme discipline and drive in one area, it has to spill over to other areas.
So that's like the first prerequisite for us. If an athlete is not an IFBB Pro, unfortunately, they might fit as an ambassador or as an affiliate, but not as a sponsored athlete. The second thing is the athlete needs to fit the brand. They need to fit the brand. There's no point in us working with an athlete that is abrasive to our brand. It just doesn't make sense. It's not going to work. The consumers who see the relationship are going to be, this is a little bit awkward. It's a bit cringeworthy. What's going on?
It needs to be authentic, doesn't it?
It has to be authentic.
It has to be genuinely in line with what you're about, because it's glaringly obvious on the other end, on the consumer, when we're all sitting there scrolling in the evening and you see, and you just go, hey, that doesn't really add up.
Doesn't align.
Is that something that person would really use? Is that something they'd actually promote and actually find value in themselves? Is that really something you'd see? It has to be real for it to be relevant anymore, for it to really resonate.
100%. And then, the third thing is, the third major thing is you actually have to have a platform to be able to tell people what you want to tell them. So we call that influence, right?
Yep.
You have to be able to have influence through whatever platforms you have exposure through.
Yep.
So for a lot of our athletes, it's Instagram. For some of them, it's also Facebook, YouTube, TikTok. There's a whole bunch of different platforms, and they're always changing. But you have to have influence.
Beautiful.
Last question, Will, from Devin Foley through YouTube. Without MassiveJoes, what do you think the Australian supplement market / community would be like?
Oh,
this is a good question.
This is.
This is a good question for you as an outsider, mate.
This is, because I can offer some, hopefully being a bit of a guest to this episode, it might lend a different perspective. Look, I would say that the amount of content you guys did, you did us a solid as an industry, I think. In starting on, a lot of people grew up watching raw reviews, grew up watching a lot of content around, basic breakdowns, previews.
Yeah.
A lot of the content you watch is where a lot of people got their information about supplements, and a lot of people first got their hands on having actual education around these things, and actually using and trying and figuring out why to use supplements. So I think it would change the landscape massively. I think the amount of people you guys impact with that content you've put out to educate people has allowed me to, as a formulator, to have these, to have customers recognise why my formulas do what they do. 5 years ago, it was a different game. Now you've really driven that part of the business. I would say it'd be a very different landscape. I think people would be a lot less. I think it's a big avenue of education for people around supplements, ingredients, formulas, and I think without that, it would have been a very different game for us. I would see an impact in my consumer base, because that's where a lot of them go.
Man, I appreciate that. There's some kind words. Look, I tend to agree. From an insider's perspective, I think that we have done a lot through, we produce more content than anyone in the game, right? And I think that most of our content that we have produced over the years and continue to produce is like this. It's educational. It's not sales-driven content. It's let's ask questions, let's review products, let's deep dive, let's call companies out when they've underdosed ingredients. Yep. Let's just call a spade, right? Let's call it for what it is. Let's help educate consumers on what they're putting into their bodies, what they should be putting into their bodies, where companies have cut corners, that sort of thing.
Set the bar for what to expect.
Well, absolutely, and I think that we've done a really good job of kind of keeping the industry honest to a certain aspect, through educating consumers. So consumers now know what to look for, so you can't kind of pull the wool over their eyes as a supplement company and underdose ingredients and put ingredients in there that don't do anything, or in dosages that aren't efficacious. So I think that we've had that effect. I think the other thing as well is we have, through the importing distribution side of the business, we've brought a lot of brands to Australia that otherwise wouldn't be here.
Oh, massively. There's been some big brands as well that a lot of people would know. You guys have been the first point of contact with them, and I think that exposure as well to some of the great American formulators, and seeing those when they've products that come over. Yeah, I think it really has helped raise the bar a lot on formulations, and it's afforded me, I guess, customers that they're more aware, and they go out and they seek formulas like the ones that I've put out that are on the heavier end of the dosing spectrum, and that are all clinically dosed. They know why, and they know what to look for when we talk about it. And that wasn't a thing before. That's definitely something that you guys had a big part in. But a lot of those brands, first time we ever saw them was through you guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's still happening now. You've got a few cool brands that I use myself. So it's awesome to see, man.
Good. Guys, that's a wrap for this episode of The Clinical Dose. Will, thank you very much. awesome having you as a guest. I hope you guys have enjoyed Will's insights, a little different, take from a supplement company owner as opposed to a supplement company retailer. So from the outside to the inside. Guys, if you've got a question that you would like us to answer in the very next episode of The Clinical Dose, the best place to ask that question is here on the MassiveJoes YouTube channel in the comments down below. Pop your question in there. That's the first place that we look for them when we pick the 5 best for the next episode of The Clinical Dose. As always, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Subscribe to the MassiveJoes YouTube channel. Turn your post notifications on your mobile, your cell phone, your desktop PC, and whatever other device you're watching this video on, so you don't miss a beat when it comes to all these new episodes of The Clinical Dose and everything else we've got going on the channel. You gonna do this outro for me?
Oh, there's a lot of pressure. You've been doing it so well for so long now.
Until next time, where we coming to and from, Will?
Got here from the MassiveJoes headquarters, guys, and we're llooking forward to bringing out another episode in. When are we going to do this again? Hopefully soon.
Hopefully soon.
Hopefully soon. I'd love to do this again.
Stay massive.
Thank you for tuning in to this video. We hope you enjoyed watching. Don't forget to check out our latest upload and our recommended video, and be sure to subscribe to the MassiveJoes YouTube channel to stay up to date with all of our latest uploads.